A sunny autumn day here in Wesel, Germany. See the nice leaves here, and we have a bit of an unusual camera comparison between those two here. Vlogging centered camera phones, or at least selfie centered camera phones, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max and the Huawei Pura X. You can see the specs on the screen. In terms of cameras, it should be very clear, and if you also follow my ranking list, it should be clear who's the winner here. Nevertheless, someone was asking me, which one would you take for vlogging? And I think it makes sense to check them out both for that reason. And I will also take maybe a little bit more selfies than usual, but with the main camera sensors here on them. You can see the huge difference between the camera sensors there. Tiny telephoto one on the Pura, a bit larger on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi has a tiny ultra-wide angle for that matter. And the Huawei, I think, should have a better ultra-wide angle here as well. And of course they also have some front-facing shooters, but why? It's just for video chat and so on. Maybe a short start with the front-facing video, and then we immediately switch to the main focus of this video. Front-facing video here on the Huawei Pura X. 4K 30 and 4K 60 frames per second are possible. However, it doesn't have any autofocus. So if I have the Vivo X200 Ultra here in this nice new MagSafe case, I'll link down below, by the way, it doesn't focus on it, no matter where I put it. This is one of the downfalls that we have here on the front-facing camera. Otherwise, it's pretty wide. You can go 1x if you want to, but it's just like minimal crop. It has nice HDR. As you see here, everything is nicely exposed there. Even there where the sun is. There's a bit of overexposure there, you can see. But otherwise, I think stabilization is nice and it's a good front-facing camera. But what do you think about this one here? And now front-facing video here on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. You can see that the sky is a bit overexposed there already, so HDR might be not as great here, but we have autofocus. It's a very nice autofocus lens that we have here, so it's focusing nicely here on this Vivo. And when you take a look at there, I think it's even more overexposed than the Huawei was there, so this might have a weaker front-facing camera even. Is that really true, or it's just HDR differences that we have here on this one? What do you think about those in comparison? And now you have them both side by side. You can see that the Huawei is a bit more cropped in, for that matter. I have to level them a little bit. And it's a bit wider by default on the Xiaomi. Both recording 4K 30 frames per second. They can do 4K 60 frames per second as well. What do you think about the quality here? How about HDR? I see myself now on a pretty large screen on the Pura, where on the Xiaomi it is a bit small because the screen is also pretty large, but it's definitely smaller, and because it's like cropping into 16:9, it is definitely way smaller, like 1 inch or something like this, that we have here, a bit over 1 inch maybe as a size of the display that is really showing the video feed. What do you think about those here in comparison? Which one has the better HDR, better stabilization and colors? Which one is better for vlogging? Which one you think you like best here in this comparison? Let's switch to the ultra wide angle, and there we see a huge difference, because when I go ultra wide angle here and ultra wide angle there, you see first of all my hand on the Huawei, probably, there we go, that we have a much wider field of view on the Huawei in comparison to the 18mm that we have, because it's cropping in from the 17 on the 17 Pro Max. So which one is better for vloggability? What do you think? Which one is working best here in this like sunny environment? Sometimes you have sunny environments and it's very, very good to have the ability to have also the ultra wide angle to show a little bit more, and it's the best for the even weaker ultra wide angles like the one on the Xiaomi, to show off what they are capable of in terms of producing images. But of course the real challenge will be then the ultra wide angle used at nighttime, where I can, spoiler alert, say already that the Xiaomi is completely failing and the Huawei is somehow passable, but it's not the best, especially indoors, for example. It can be working out, but it's getting quite soft there. But what do you think about those two here? And we do also a zoom comparison. I know it's not something that you will do for vlogging for sure, But sometimes you want to turn around the camera and try a little bit of zooming in to something. So let's check this out as well. So both now are recording with the ultra wide angle. Let's go to 2x on both. Which one had better, smoother zoom here? Let's go to 3.5 here, and here we have to zoom in 3.5 manually on the Xiaomi. So which one is performing better? Here it's a dedicated lens on the Huawei. It's a crop from the main on the Xiaomi. Xiaomi is not using its technology that's using when taking photos, where it's like taking the inner center part of the 5x zoom and like calculating it in, because for video it's a bit hard to do. Let's go 5x here and 5x here. Which one is performing better here? It should be now the Xiaomi that is performing way better there. Let's maybe focus on the thing there in the background. Let's go to 10x. We don't have a 10x button, so I have to go 10x here, which is the maximum zoom here on the Huawei. I think it's very clear now that the Xiaomi is better. Let's go back to 1x on both. Which one has smoother zoom here? And yeah, if you were like filming something like a dog or something, which one is performing better there for such things? Stabilization test. I noticed that when I was turning around and panning a lot on the Xiaomi, it was a bit stuttery. I didn't have this issue on the Huawei. So let's do a pan around. HDR kind of test as well. So which one is performing better here? I think I see a little bit of stutter still on the Xiaomi. Maybe it's on the screen only, hopefully. Yeah, which one is performing better here? The spans and so on. Which one is the camera of choice for you for vlogging? Which one you like better? Write it down in the comment section. The cool feature on the Xiaomi is for sure that it's like half the size only, and I can go into this, can go into camera and then see myself and can take a photo. By default it's going into the portrait mode, and yeah, it's looking a bit darker than it actually is here, but I can use it then very easily to take the shot, where on the Xiaomi you also have this lock screen. You can double tap and then swipe, and then you have the ability to take video or photos or portraits or photo collages even, which is quite nice. And you have various different templates that you can use to create those photo collages. But you see that already, even in portrait mode, and I'm holding it like this, it's a way smaller screen there, and I have to hold this like this because otherwise the phone is just very large and a bit cumbersome. So yes, it is great to have this, but for really positioning yourself and seeing all the details, the screen might be a little bit too small. And what about the brightness of the screen? It might be that the Huawei camera recording here is a bit better now, but the brightness of the screen is a little bit brighter there on the Xiaomi for sure, but the screen is also smaller. Photos, and we start off with this shot here with the main camera sensor to show you the differences in terms of focal lengths. We have a bit of wider field of view on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max with 23mm and the Pura X has 24mm. I shot the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max with like a vibrant because I think this matches more the style of the Pura X original color. That means, but also that the 17 Pro Max has more punchier colors. You see it directly here, also here with this advertisement board there. It's much punchier, it's much more brighter, and it's a bit more sharpened up there for sure as well. This is the only shot, however, where it appears to be more sharper on the 17 Pro Max than on the Pura X, because usually the Pura X is sharpening a little bit more up. When we take a look at the portrait shots here, master portrait on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, the face is more yellow, it's brightening the face a little bit more up, it's more contrasty on the Pura X, both shot with f2.8 virtual aperture. And when you take a look at the detail levels, almost identical, not much of a difference. I think there's a bit, because of more contrast, it appears a bit more sharper on the Pura X, not much of a difference. However, when you look at the cutout, what you will immediately see is that the Pura X makes a better job in terms of cutting out and leaving fine hair detail, especially here on this side, where it's just like blurring it out completely and it's not even in the shot. So this is, I think, for the cutouts, for the portrait shots, a win for the Pura X. Look also at the microphone and at my jacket there. It's a bit softer there on the Xiaomi comparison to the Pura. Ultra wide angle is not really ultra wide on the 17 Pro Max. Here's the best example. If you want to use it for taking selfies and showing your surroundings, you will see that it's much wider on the Pura X there. And also in terms of sharpness and detail level, again, I think the Pura X, even though it is wider, appears to be a lot sharper there as well. And then also the background, yeah, okay, 17 millimeters on the Xiaomi. There might be a bit of out of focus area, but nothing is really completely sharp. So the focus point was probably somewhere around my face. But yeah, color is also a bit cooler, a bit darker there on the 17 Pro Max. And this is because when you switch to the little back-facing screen, it takes another color profile than what you have when you have your large screen. So it's like authentic here on the 17 Pro Max instead of like a vibrant. Then the 3.5 times zoom optical on the Pura X and digital on the 17 Pro Max, where it's taking the center to cut from the 5X to cut in and blend it in. I didn't notice much of a difference, which is like a compliment towards the Huawei, because it's upscaling from 8 megapixels to 12 megapixels there with the 8 megapixel sensor. And in terms of detail levels and so on, not much of a difference between those two, which is a compliment towards the Huawei, I have to say. Then we take a look at this one here. This is a challenging shot for HDR tests. First of all, color-wise, again, the Xiaomi is way too warm, where the Pura X is coming closer towards reality, though it's a tad maybe too cool there. When we take a look at the sharpness and detail levels, we can see that now the Pura X's sharpening is definitely seen here. It's much sharper than the Xiaomi. And when we come to HDR test here, the end of the tunnel or of this gate, you can see that the Huawei is trying to compensate its lag in terms of HDR by giving this turquoise, green, bluish sky there, which is totally fake because this is not how the sky looked like. And yes, this is what the Xiaomi is doing is correct. This is how the sky should have looked like. So AI is kicking in here, apparently trying to do this. But you can also see with the stairs and with the house, especially here, that we see that the Xiaomi has better HDR on the main camera sensor. When you take a look at another shot here with this challenging situation, we also have the ability to see not much higher contrast, not only on the 17 Pro Max, but also the better HDR is also visible there, where it's a bit overexposing there on the Pura X. In terms of detail levels on the face, this was like a little blurred. This one didn't have this blur effect, so yeah, very hard to compare, but this is a bit more warmer face as well for some reason. Then ultra-wide angle versus, yeah, almost looking not like an ultra-wide angle, so more dramatic shots you definitely get with the Pura X thanks to its 30mm ultra-wide angle, even though it is sharpening the hell out of the shot. The detail levels there are almost the same, which is like a bit of laughable because the Xiaomi has this much narrower kind of shot, but it's still in terms of detail level not competing. Here both have a nice exposure in terms of HDR. I think the Huawei is doing slightly better. Look at the car there on the left where he's a bit overexposed. So yes, we have a narrow field of view and a bit of weaker HDR on the 17 Pro Max. Telezoom, I was quite surprised to see this year. I would thought the 17 Pro Max is beating the Pura X the hell out of it, but this is like much closer than I really thought it is. Yes, it is more detailed on the Xiaomi at 5X here, but it's not a huge difference. Then I noticed the magic wand there. It's AI kicking in on the Huawei because it knows it has a bad telezoom, so it's automatically kicking in AI. The unedited shot is this one here, and when you compare it now, it becomes more evident that it's like just an 8 megapixel shot cropped in and then upscaled to 12 megapixels for sure on the Huawei. And when you go to 10x, again the AI shot versus the AI shot, it is looking very smooth and passable, I have to say, where here of course we have much more details there for sure. So even the AI shot on the Pura X at 10x cannot really beat the Xiaomi for sure. And this is the shot where it comes from. So I'm amazed that Huawei is doing this AI and saving both of them, because the AI shot looks a little bit cleaner and better, because this one here would be unusable for sure. Then the ultra wide angle again for selfies. This is where I noticed, okay, I have like authentic on this little screen on the Xiaomi. And this is why the colors are totally different. But you can also see already here, even with this HDR differences. Yes, it's like authentic. Detail levels again. Shadows here, no shadows there, sharper all over the place. Look at this, it's just sharp, it's just better on the Pura X. Then I noticed, okay, switch to like a vibrant on the 17 Pro Max on the small screen. Still better HDR, look at the sun there. even like a vibrant, and also the detail levels in the background. Yeah, it's heavily sharpened up, definitely on the Pura X, but it's still looking nicer than on the Xiaomi, in my opinion. And it's sharper and more detailed. So for ultra wide angle shots that you want to take as selfies with the outer screens or the back screen, definitely the Pura X. Main camera sensors, taking selfies there. I think the Pura X I like a bit more. It is more contrast, which I don't like, where I'm leaning towards the 17 Pro Max, but I'm liking it just a bit more because it feels more natural, in my opinion, with the shadow left in. HDR kind of, yes, I think the Xiaomi's doing a bit better job. It's lifting the shadow here a bit too much. It's just like, if I switch to Leica Authentic like this one, I have maybe a little bit more shadows there, but it's maybe a bit too much, and the contrast is a little bit too high, and the colors are a bit too muted. Where these, I wish they would have the option to have not only the switch between Leica Authentic and Leica Vibrant, but Leica Natural as well. So I get something that is a bit more processed than Leica Authentic, has the natural colors, it's not going overboard with the shadows, has like the more shadow. Yes, I know that you can do it manually, but you cannot do it on a little screen when you're taking those selfies, so it's a bit cumbersome to do so. Where I like the Pura X in terms of colors then a little bit more, but also sharpness and detail levels. It's just like, when I want to take a selfie like this, I want to have more details there. And it's just like, yeah, it is what it is. But you can write down in the comment section which one you prefer in terms of taking selfies here with the main camera sensors, the Pura X or the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. Huawei Pura X. This is the nighttime video here. We don't have the largest sensor, it's a smaller sensor, 101.4 inch size sensor. Has RYYB technology, however. Can it work in the dark? Walking towards the light here. How good is the audio quality as well? It's a bit of a breeze going on there in terms of wind. Light behind me now. How good is it? I think it's notoriously bad for such situations there, with the back light and lens flare all over the place there. Nevertheless, what do you think? Turning towards the light here of the Pura X here in terms of videography at night. 4K 30 frames per second, because it doesn't have a dedicated night mode, but it has auto FPS that will probably go down to 24 frames per second. So what do you think about this one here? This is the night video now on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. 4K 24 frames per second, a special mode that we have here. A little bit larger of a sensor, 101.28 inch sized sensor. And walking towards the light here, how does it handle this light source? I know the Pura is tremendously yellow orangey kind of. How does it handle lens flare effect? The light is now behind me. How about stabilization? Is it better than the Pura X? Pura X has RYYB technology, but it also means that yellow tones are more exaggerated. This is why my face probably is super orange on the Pura X. How does this one handle it? Because the light source is definitely yellow, orange yellow kind of, but I think the Pura is doing it a little bit exaggerated. What about this one here? How good is the audio quality? Which one has better audio quality with a slight breeze going on here? At night, both of those two ultra-wide angle cameras come much closer. You can see a much warmer exposure on the 17 Pro Max, but you can also see it's very soft, where on the Pura X it looks a bit sharper, but when you look at it, it is just over sharpened mess. And when you look at here, it's just a very soft, and the softness even helps to make it look more artistic, like better HDR even, where here it's a tiny bit overexposed looking, but in actuality you saw and in daylight that the HDR was a bit working better on the ultra wide angle of the Pura. So yes, the only thing, both are equally not usable, very soft there and not much details. It's a bit overexposed and over sharpened on the Pura. The Pura has just the advantage that it has a more ultra wide angle field of view and appears to be a bit sharper thanks to its sharpening algorithms there. So yes, in this case, it's a win for the Pura. Let's take a look at the main camera sensors here. Apart from the differences in terms of the focal lengths, both are doing a fine job, but you can see already that the HDR is working a tiny bit better on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, and here you can see the big difference in terms of where I think the better sensor is built into the Xiaomi. The details, look at this here, the shades, and here you can see there's the shades. Here it looks like it's a wall or something like this, could be a painting here as well. So the detail levels are on another level there on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi is competing against 1-inch type sensors here in the night, where the Pura cannot, and HDR as well, being better on the Xiaomi. When you take a look at zoom shots, the 3x zoom here, 3.5 times zoom, is not actually switching on the Pura X, it's just a crop of the main. And on the 17 Pro Max, also a crop of the main, you can see it's equally bad, maybe a tiny bit better there on the Xiaomi 17 Pro X, equally unusable. When I go even further, like 5 times, it's still cropping in from the main. This is why it's unusable on the Huawei, where on the 17 Pro X is really switching. You can see now I can read this sign, it's much better looking there. Where the Huawei is switching finally through its 3.5 times zoom is at this shot here. And you can clearly see it. Why is this the case? Because the magic wand is there and the AI is kicking in. And then at 10x, it's getting quite interesting because yes, the AI is there, because I don't have the unedited version, I deleted it, but it was unusable. And AI also was kicking in here on the Pura X and helping. On the 70 Pro X is also AI is kicking in all the time there and helping, but you don't get a separate picture that says it's not like the not enhanced version. Basically, it's tremendously close here with this one. You can see, yes, definitely the better optics on the Xiaomi is definitely working. You can see it definitely in terms of details levels. But again, just like at daylight, I'm surprised that this 8 megapixel sensor is not completely failing. But now that I know the magic wand and AI is kicking on the Pura, it explains it. And when we take a look at the selfie shot, this is now taken with the selfies with the selfie camera, the front-facing camera on both, that you probably won't use. We can see that the advantage of the Xiaomi with the autofocus is a bit there, also a bit more cropped in for sure, and nicer bokeh balls than the same aperture on the Huawei that is failing a little bit there. So here I like a little bit more the Xiaomi, but who's taking selfies with this one in the night when you have the main camera sensor that you can use, not with portrait mode in this case, but you can use it. And here, yeah, which one do you prefer in this kind of shot here? Again, 23 was 24 millimeters. It's quite soft and edited looking there on the Huawei, which I don't like. I look like a painting. And here, better. The Xiaomi is winning. So the main camera sensor at night, when you want to take photos, definitely take the Xiaomi, because the Huawei is failing there. Doesn't have a standard chance at night against the larger sensor and the newer sensor that we have there. There's some issues with reds there, as you see there. There's some clipping there going on there with the red light apparently. Where this had probably some green light issues there as well. And HDR is working better here, as you see, overexposure there as well. So yes, the Xiaomi 70 Pro Max definitely has the better cam, and at night when you want to take selfies, take the 70 Pro Max, because physics probably won't lose. A ranking and a conclusion. The Xiaomi 17 Pro Max TLDR gets 4.545 points, where the Huawei Pura X gets 4.373 points. So where are the huge differences? We notice the differences, especially at nighttime, where the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max is newer and slightly larger sensor is definitely winning, with much better colors, with much more details, much better HDR. Daylight less noticeable because Huawei is faking a lot, but also with a larger sensor there. For selfies at daylight, however, I prefer more the Pura X actually than the 17 Pro Max. But for the rest of it, you can see a slab phone is still winning against the foldable phone. Ultra wide angle. The ultra wide angle on the Pura X is slightly better there than on the 17 Pro Max. At nighttime, they're almost equal. It's just that it's completely soft on the 17 Pro Max because it's a design choice by Xiaomi to make it soft in general. With the Pura X, it's heavily sharpening things up. At daylight, you'll also notice it's sharpening things up, but thanks to its wider field of view, you get a more dramatic kind of field of view on the Pura X. I prefer the ultra wide angle on the Pura X here, 4.1 points. Zoom and portrait photo shots. I didn't really test them out, as you saw with normal portrait shots, so I concentrate more on the selfie shots with them because people are asking me about the vloggability about both of them, and the video is long enough. 4.2 on the Huawei Pura X. The reason is simply because the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, especially at its 3x zoom range up to 5x for portrait modes, is much better than the Pura X. If you take selfies, however, the Pura X, as you see here, also with the portrait mode there, the portrait mode on the Pura X works a bit better with the main camera sensors because the cutouts are a bit nicer on the Pura X than on the 17 Pro Max. Xiaomi has to fix that, and all over the place. I think the selfie vlogs are a bit better with the Pura X. Talking about vlogs, video recording quality is only 4.45 points on the Pura X, and it's 4.6 on the 17 Pro Max. Where is the big issue? The big issue on the Pura X is for sure the lens flare effects that are just simply outrageous. And the other thing is, of course, if you zoom in at a certain level, the Xiaomi is just beating the Pura X really, really hard there. But when it comes to the vloggability with the main camera sensors, in terms of stabilization, I had an issue with the 17 Pro Max. You saw it jumping when I was like doing this panning around. Like, this is an issue that I didn't notice when normally recording without the second screen turned on the 17 Pro Max. So maybe it's a processing issue that both screens were on there, because it didn't happen when I was, or it didn't happen so much. There was one occasion where it happened a little bit when I was only using the main camera screen on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. So that has some stabilization issues there with video recording, where it's much smoother on the Pura X. But this is something that Xiaomi can fix definitely in software. I like the Pura X for the ultra wide angle video a bit better than the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, as long as you're not having the sun in the background, because then I think the lens flare effects are a bit distracting on the Pura X. So 17 Pro Max is sharpening a little bit more up for the whole video, where the Pura X keeps it a bit softer there. Some people like or may prefer the Pura X. I prefer the Pura X that way, or the video footage a bit softer than a little bit over sharpened. Also, the more contrasty look on the 17 Pro Max I didn't like too much, because it gives more of a smartphone or action cam vibe on the 17 Pro Max than on the Pura X, which has more like a camera feeling. But this is a preference that I have, but objectively speaking, the video recording quality, especially with the zoom in, zoom out shots, are a bit better on the 17 Pro Max, except the ultra wide angle. The ultra wide angle is just bad on the 17 Pro Max. It's better on the Huawei Pura X, and indoors for sure. Also, the Pura X is just a bit better, a tad better there. And you saw also the night video that the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max had much more noise, but it also had more details, where the Pura X was quite more softer, had way more warmish, yellowish, brownish, what was orangey kind of color on my face, which I also didn't like. Video recording wise as well, Pura X, I think audio is a bit better than the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, but you be the judge. You can write it down in the comment section. Autofocus performance on both identical. Both had some slip ups here and there, especially with the sunlight in the background. Front facing camera, I give the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max a little bit more points here because of the autofocus that we have. It's a bit more flexible maybe on the front camera on the Pura X, because you can get a bit wider there. But if you take a look at both of them, I think that the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, especially also in low light, is doing a better job with the front-facing camera. But if you have the back-facing cameras, the front-facing cameras are just really pure decoration and just for video chats. And camera UI wise, I think the Xiaomi is having a much better camera UI here, much more usable with one hand, much more features that are like setting a timer on the screen. It's also possible on the Huawei, interestingly enough, on the outer screen. So for selfies, you don't have an issue there. But if you want to do a timer for the main screen, super easy on the Xiaomi. On the Huawei, you have to go into a sub-menu to set up a timer, which is totally stupid. Extra features, I give them the same points here. I know the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max has this nice feature in terms of what you can do with the how's it called, the street mode, the fast shot mode. But the Pura X has this nice feature that you have those X-Image color profiles, and you have also the anime filter in there that you can edit the way you like it, which is, I made a video, by the way, if you're interested in this one. It is super, super cool, and this is a feature that I really, really like. And then we also have, I think, log recording on the Xiaomi that we don't have on the Huawei. So the Huawei only has the possibility to choose the X-Image filters there in Pro Video mode, for example, but you cannot use it for recording log, which is something that you might want to do. And some other things like color photo profiles that I can save on the Xiaomi, which is quite nice, where the Huawei Pura X has some features that are not available on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, like for example the aperture mode, which I like. So it's basically portrait mode, but not for people photography, but for objects and so on. It's working very, very nicely there as well. And light painting is there that I really, really like as well. And yeah, those are some of the features that are there. Snapshot mode and so on. I think both have those kind of options there. So extra features the same. Where does it end up now in terms of our ranking system? You can see nothing has basically changed. The Huawei Pura X is still ranked number 24, which is one of the highest ranks for a foldable phone. And the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max is ranked number 8 here, so way above the Pura X. But you see in the photos, and especially for selfies, which one is better. You can choose which one is better, which shows also that this ranking is like taking overall ranking system of all the camera sensors and everything there. But if you have a specific use case, like only taking selfies or vlogs, you might end up with the Pura X being better, even though it is ranked much below the 17 Pro Max. But because of other factors, like the form factor, that it's smaller, that the screen is larger, and maybe that you like the processing of the video a bit better. So keep that in mind when you come up with such questions. This is why I'm doing such overview here in comparison, to show you stuff that the ranking system that I have here is just a small indicator for the overall camera performance, but you have them to try them out side by side to see which one you personally prefer better and which one you like to use. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye.